Hi guys, Victoria Paxton here. Thanks for stopping back by my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, all that's free, doesn't cost anything. Okay, so a little disclaimer here before I start this one. Listen, everybody is free to believe whatever they want to believe about this person. You can believe whatever you want, okay? But let me start by saying, I know that his fans and his followers, a lot of them think that he faked his death. They think he's still alive. There's like this huge movement about it, right? And let me just tell you that I was very fortunate to get close to this person. During a tough time in this person's life. And I don't want to go into too many details because it's not necessary. But this one was hard. It was hard for me to connect with this person to get to the truth. And which I pretty much already knew the truth or thought I did. But, I want to be 100% real here, So even though it's someone that I love and care about, I wanted the truth. So that's what I tried to find out. Okay, y'all. So, Michael Joseph Jackson. And again, if you're an MJ fan and you don't agree with what I say and you think he's faked his death and he's still alive, good for you. You do what you got to do and you believe what you want to believe, okay? This is my opinion. This is my connection with him. This is what he relayed to me. And that's it. If you don't believe, if you think that I'm wrong, then you know what? Click out. You don't have to subscribe. You don't have to watch my videos. It's real simple just to click out instead of being a bully and calling me names and calling him names and, tarnishing his reputation more than it already has been tarnished. There's no point in it. Click out, walk away. All right? Okay. So, Michael Joseph Jackson was born on August 29th, 1958 in Gary, Indiana. He was the 8th child out of 10 to Joseph and Catherine Jackson. His mother worked part-time at Sears, and she was a staunch Jehovah's Witness. Joe Jackson, his father, was a former boxer. He was a crane operator at U.S. Steel. And he played guitar for a local rhythm and blues band named the Falcons. Okay, so Michael grew up with 3 sisters, Rebby, Latoya, and Janet, 5 brothers, Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Randy. Marlon's twin brother, Brandon, died shortly after birth, unfortunately. So, in 1964, Michael and Marlon joined the Jackson Brothers, a band that was formed by the father, which included Jackie, Tito, and Jermaine as backup musicians playing congos and tambourine. Later that year, Michael began sharing lead vocals with Jermaine, and the group's name was changed to the Jackson 5. The following year, the group won a talent show. Michael performed the dance to Robert Parker's 1965 song, Barefootin', and he was singing lead to The Temptations' My Girl. From 66 to 68, they toured the Midwest. They also performed in clubs and cocktail lounges. They performed several songs for a Gary record label, Steeltown Records, in 1968. Bobby Taylor and the Vancouvers brought the Jackson 5 to Motown. After signing with Motown, the Jacksons moved from Gary, Indiana to Los Angeles, California. In 1969, executives at Motown decided Diana Ross should introduce the Jackson 5 to the public. So thus began Diana Ross presents, In May of 71, the Jackson family moved to a large home on 2 acres in Encino, California. During this time, Michael went from being a child performer to a teen idol. He emerged as a solo performer in the early 70s, but he maintained his ties to the Jackson 5s. Between 72 and 75, Michael released 4 solo albums with Motown. In 1975, the Jackson 5 left Motown. They signed with Epic Records, a subsidiary of CBS Records, and renamed themselves the Jacksons. Randy joined the band, and Jermaine remained with Motown to begin a solo career. I think part of why Jermaine remained with Motown was because, wasn't he marrying Barry Gordy's daughter or something? I don't know. The Jacksons continued to tour internationally. In 1978, Michael moved to New York City to star as the Scarecrow in the musical The Wiz. It was a box office failure. That sucks. January 27, 1984, Jackson was performing a simulated concert for a Pepsi commercial when pyrotechnics accidentally set his head on fire. Jackson underwent treatment to hide the scars that were left due to the second-degree burns that he received. Pepsi settled with Michael out of court for $1.2 million. Michael donated the money to the Brotman Medical Center in Culver City. The Michael Jackson Burn Center was opened in his honor. So that was cool. I mean, Michael was a good dude when it came to donating tons of money. He always did that. He signed a second agreement with Pepsi for $10 million. March of '88, Jackson purchased 2,700 acres of land near St. Ives, California, and named it Neverland Ranch. He installed Ferris wheels, carousel, movie theater, and a zoo. In '93, Michael was accused of child sexual abuse of a 13-year-old boy named Jordan Chandler. Jordan's father, Evan, was pushing the accusations. Jordan claimed Michael had engaged in acts of kissing, masturbation, and oral sex. Jordan's mother initially said she didn't believe the accusations, but she changed her mind a few days later. So, yeah, I guess, yeah, maybe I'll just keep my opinions to myself. Okay, so Evan, Jordan's father, was caught on video discussing how he was going to extort Michael for money. Gee, go figure. Police raided Neverland Ranch in December. Jordan gave the police a description of Michael's genitalia. The police gave Michael a strip search, and jurors felt that Jordan's description didn't match. In January 1994, Michael stupidly settled with the Chandlers for $25 million because his attorneys told him he should do that. The police never pressed charges due to a lack of evidence. Yeah. On November 12, 93, Jackson canceled the remainder of his dangerous tour due to health problems, stress, and a painkiller addiction. Yeah, that sucks. In late 1993, Jackson proposed to Elvis Presley's daughter, Lisa Marie, and they were married in May of 1994. The media claimed it was a publicity stunt to help improve Michael's image after the child sexual allegations. Unfortunately, Michael and Lisa separated a little more than a year later, December of 1995. Lisa cited irreconcilable differences when she filed for divorce in January. Jackson went on his story tour from September 96 to October 97. During his tour in Sydney, Australia, Jackson married Debbie Rowe. She was a medical tech that worked for Dr. Arnold Klein, who was Michael's dermatologist. She was 6 months pregnant with Michael's first child. Michael Joseph Jackson Jr. was born on February 13th, 1997. Michael chose to call him Prince. And I believe Michael's grandfather's, maybe his maternal grandfather's real name was Prince. I think that's true. I don't know. His sister, Paris Michael Catherine Jackson, also known as Paris, was born on April 13th, 1998. In 2002, an anonymous surrogate gave birth to his third child, Prince Michael Jackson II, that he nicknamed Blanket. On November 20th, Jackson briefly held Blanket over the railing of his Berlin hotel 4 stories up. The media went crazy. That was a scary thing, y'all. I remember seeing that on the news, and I was like, what the heck is he thinking, right? He ultimately apologized, said he made a mistake. Okay, here we go. So in May 2002, a documentary film crew led by Martin Bashir followed Jackson for several months. The documentary aired in February of 2003 entitled Living with Michael Jackson. During the documentary, Jackson was seen holding hands and discussing sleeping arrangements with a 12-year-old boy. Jackson went on to say something about how sharing a bed is one of the most loving things you can do. You know, when I watched that, I mean, my heart just sank, you know, it just sank. But from the very beginning, Martin Bashir, you know, he's a schmuck. He always has been. He always will be. And I think the whole reason why he did the documentary to begin with was because he wanted to make Michael look bad. And he succeeded. Yeah. On December 18th of 2003, Santa Barbara authorities charged Michael Jackson with 7 counts of child molestation and 2 counts of intoxicating a minor with alcohol. Jackson denied the allegations and he pled not guilty. The People versus Michael Jackson began on January 31st, 2005 in Santa Monica, California. The trial lasted until the end of May. On June 13th, 2005, Jackson was acquitted on all charges. The trial took a lot out of Michael Jackson. You could see it, it was always on the news, and you could see him just slipping away. I mean, he just started looking horrible. After the trial, he became a recluse and moved to Bahrain as a guest of Sheikh Abdullah. Jermaine later said that had Michael had been found guilty, that's where they were going to move him, was Bahrain, which, Jermaine, maybe you shouldn't have said that. So unfortunately, the trial did mark the beginning of the end for Michael. I mean, like I said, we all saw it. Everybody saw it. Like, he was just becoming nothing. Like, he just looked terrible. Okay, so fast forward. In March of 2009, at a press conference at the O2 Arena, Michael Jackson announced a series of comeback concerts entitled This Is It. This was, during speculation. People were saying about his health and his finances. And he brought up that he was going to retire after these concerts. And I can tell you this, when I saw the press conference, Michael just wasn't acting like himself. He just didn't act like himself. He was just off. And during researching and stuff, they said supposedly he was drunk. And maybe that's what it was. But, he normally had a really soft-spoken voice. And there he just didn't sound like himself. He didn't look like himself. He was kind of jumping around, I don't know. He just didn't look like himself, in my opinion. Okay, so, all right. The initial plan was for 10 concerts in London, followed by shows in Paris, New York City, and Mumbai. The London residency show increased to 50 dates after record-breaking ticket sales. Over 1 million tickets sold in less than 2 hours. So it went from 10 concerts to 50. That's a lot for a man in his 50s. That's a lot. The concert, let me go back and say this. When he would do a show, he would get dehydrated. He would lose so much weight because he literally was dancing the entire concert. He wasn't one of these people that just stood there. Like, he was all over the stage, So 50 shows at his age. Yeah. The concerts were to run from July 13th of 2009 to March 6th of 2010. Jackson rehearsed in Los Angeles the weeks leading up to the tour under the direction of choreographer Kenny Ortega. He had worked with Kenny Ortega in the past on tours. On January 25th of 2009, less than 3 weeks before the first show was to begin, Jackson died. Dr. Conrad Murray, his personal physician, had given Jackson multiple medications to help him sleep. Okay. Paramedics received a 911 call at 12:22 Pacific time and arrived 3 minutes later. Jackson wasn't breathing and CPR was started. Dr. Murray had started CPR on Michael while he was laying in bed. Duh. Okay, first of all, you're a doctor. Second of all, you're a cardiac doctor. So how do you not know that the patient should be on a hard surface to do CPR? How do you not know that? That's one thing I will never understand. Like, if I could talk to Dr. Murray, that's the first question I would ask him. And when the reporters were questioning him, not one brought that up. And I'm thinking, hello, okay. Jackson wasn't breathing. CPR was started. More than an hour later, Michael was pronounced dead at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Hospital at 2:26 p.m. Pacific time. Jackson had been given propofol, lorazepam, and midazolam. His death was caused by a propofol overdose. Okay, in case any of you have been sleeping under a rock, because I'm sure most people know what happened to Michael Jackson, propofol is that white liquid. It does look like milk. It does. That drips through your IV tube to keep you knocked out when you're having surgery. It's not something that you would use to put somebody to sleep, okay? So first and foremost, with Conrad Murray being a doctor, he knew better. He didn't have Michael hooked up to any kind of machines. He wasn't sitting there, making sure his heart was okay or anything. Because had he had them hooked up to the appropriate machines, like you're hooked up to when you're in the hospital, he would have seen that there were issues, right? So, yeah. Okay, so Dr. Murray was charged with involuntary manslaughter on February 8th of 2010. His trial began September 21st, I think, to November 1st of 2011. He was found guilty and sentenced to 4 years in prison. He was released from prison on October 28th of 2013 due to overcrowding in the California jails and good behavior. So I just want to intervene here for a second and say something. Catherine and the rest of the family, I guess, tried to sue concerning Kenny Ortega and the company that was surrounded concerning the concerts. But you know what? Because Murray was part of that, I guess he was under contract because he was his doctor for the concerts while he was touring. Again, let me just say, here we go again with people being angry when it should be directed at addiction. Right, that's just my personal opinion. Sue me. So, all right. In 2013, Wade Robson filed a lawsuit alleging that Jackson had sexually abused him for 7 years, beginning from the time he was 7 years old. In 2014, James Safechuck filed a case citing sexual abuse over a 4-year period beginning at the age of 10. Can I intervene here? All right. So both Wade and James, Wade was the reason why Michael got off from the sexual molestation charges, the last hearing. Because Wade, went to court and talked about how great Michael was. He never touched him and he never did this and he never did that. And I just found it very convenient that once Michael was dead and gone, and once everybody knew that his estate was worth tons of money at that point, that all of a sudden Wade and then Safechuck came forward and said, oh yeah, he molested us, and they filed lawsuits. It wasn't about them just coming out and saying, hey, we just want to make it known that he in fact did molest us and that we had lied previously. It was that they were pressing for money. You know what I mean? And it's like when you're making something like that all about money, it just pisses me off because there are real people in this world, that are raped, and there are real people in this world that are children that are, that are sexually assaulted. This is a very real thing. And it just kind of pisses me off when people make it about money. If they did the right thing, if in fact they had been molested and they did the right thing and came out and said, look, we lied during the trial, if Wade said Michael did molest me and I've just had a hard time, it's taken me a long time for it to come out, blah, 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 I would have more respect for the guy. But you know what? I have zero respect for him because it's all about money. He found out how much Michael's estate was worth and then bam, he files a lawsuit. And Safechuck files a lawsuit shortly thereafter. It's a bunch of BS. Okay, so Robson and Safechuck's allegations became the subject of an HBO documentary entitled Leaving Neverland. It was released in March of 2019. So I will say this. To me, what a documentary is both sides. So, for example, with the Martin Bashir documentary, Living with Michael Jackson, Bashir videotaped Michael and said, this is what I saw. And then Michael said, this is what happened. You know what I mean? Like, with Michael being dead, how can you do a documentary? It's one-sided because Michael he's not alive to have the chance to say, hey, I didn't really do that. You know what I mean? So that kind of irritated me. But so I watched the documentary. I hate to say this, I watched it and it was really, really disturbing, the things that were being said. I will say this, I try to stay objective. I do. But when it comes to this, I didn't feel like they were being legit. I didn't feel like they were being honest. I don't know how to explain it, but from a psychic perspective, I didn't feel that it was legit at all. I didn't. It's my opinion. I know people are going to come at me saying, oh, he was a child molester and he was this and he did that and that. Okay. That's your opinion. This is my opinion. This is my channel. And I would just want to say this, I wouldn't let somebody come into my house and call me nasty names and say hurtful things to me, right? So I'm not going to let somebody come on my YouTube channel and do that. So I'm just making it known, if you're going to be I'm going to delete your comment. I'm not going to put up with it. I'm not, yeah. Okay, so let me keep going. Okay, so Michael came through. It was so nice to communicate with him again. It's been a while, and yeah. Anyway, so we talked about Paris and Prince and Bijou, who is Blanket, who likes to be called Bijou now, and he talked about how hard it was to come to terms with the fact that he was gone, and that he was never going to be side by side with his children again. He said that was the hardest part. The other hard part was, he said, was working on forgiving his father. And he said when his father crossed over, he had a lot of time to talk to him. And he said, he was finally able to see his father's side. And what he meant by that, what he was saying was that, his dad had a tough life, as far as disciplining, him being disciplined. And he said when he really was able to sit down and see things for what they were, he said, it made all the difference in the world. And he was able to work through everything and forgive his dad. Yeah. So he said that was tough. He went on to say that the documentary that Robson and Safechuck did, he said his biggest concerns were for his kids. And he said, he loves his kids, and, it was tough that he died. And he said, but he was grateful to his whole family, his mother, his nieces and nephews, his siblings. He was grateful for his whole family that, took the kids in under their wing and has raised them. And he said he was so proud of them. Okay. So I told him that I was going to be asking him some tough things, that we're going to be talking about some tough things that he might not want to talk about, but I wanted to get to the bottom of it, and I wanted to hear what he had to say. He said he understood that he was open to discuss anything. Yeah. He said, so he went on to talk about, he said he had a few things he wanted to say. And he went on to talk about the criminal case against him. He said he saw himself slipping away. And he said he never felt like he quite recovered from it. He said that was, and, I said, well, I had seen it was the beginning of the end. And he said, exactly, that's exactly what it was. So he went on to say that trial caused him just really deep hurt. He said he had always felt like his fans had always been there for him. And all of a sudden, he didn't feel like that anymore. He didn't feel like he belonged. He didn't feel like he should stay in the U.S. He felt like his U.S. fans had turned on him. And he said, look, I know that there were fans there faithfully every day for me. He said, but there were a lot that did turn on me. And he said, and that just hurt deeply because I had always loved and respected, my fans everywhere, but, in the U.S. as well. I'm from the U.S., he said. So, yeah, so that was tough. Okay, so he went on to talk about, he had gotten pretty heavy into the medication again. He said, I definitely had an addiction. It had been there for a long time. He said, many times he had hurt his body physically. He said whether it was a knee or an ankle or a hip or an elbow. He said, with the way he danced and as hard as he was on his body in concerts, that he was hurting all the time. It was normal. And he said on top of it, he had the burns on his scalp and all those issues. And he said it was really easy to turn to drugs for comfort. And I mean, I'm sure the majority of the drug addicts out there feel the same way, right? He went on to say that when he started working out again, preparing for the concerts, and he said, it went from 10 shows to 50 shows. He said, that's a lot. That's a lot on an entertainer. He said, it's a lot on an entertainer who just gets up there and sings and stands there. He said, but I danced the entire time. That's a lot. And he said he was looking ahead to it thinking, I don't think I can do this. He really didn't think he could do it. He was older, and he said it just was really getting to him, and it was always on his mind. He was having a hard time sleeping, and he said that it was just getting harder and harder. He went on to say that he in no way blames Conrad Murray for his death. He said, yes, he didn't have the proper equipment, but I don't blame him. He was trying to help me because I was begging to sleep and I was begging for his help. So that was pretty cool to hear, He went on to say, he never had a fear of dying. His biggest fear was to leave his kids without a father, and he said that was the hardest part when he left and realized that his kids didn't have him anymore. He went on to talk about specifics, about signs that he leaves for his kids to let them know that he's around, which I'm not going to go into those specifics here, but I'll gladly, if the kids want to know, I'll tell them. He said that he felt like for a while that he was going to die. It wasn't anything new. He said he had a premonition. He knew he was going to die. And he said, death didn't scare him, but leaving his kids scared him. Okay, so on June 16th, he wasn't feeling real well. I guess he laid his head down, on the table. And that's when he had the premonition of him dying. There were people giving him CPR. Yeah. And he had these premonitions throughout his life. And I can tell you that is true. He had different premonitions throughout his life, especially the last 10 years of his life. So he said he was finished and he was open to answering my questions. So I started with, did you sexually molest Wade or James? He emphatically denied it, saying, no. I loved them. I did everything I could for their family. I put them in touch with people to further their career. I contacted people. I called in favors. He's like, absolutely not. Absolutely 100% no. That's what he said. I went on to say, why do you think they're saying these things? Why do you think they made this documentary? And he said, I don't hold it against them, but I think they saw it as a way to put some money in their pockets. And he said, the thing that upsets me are my kids are now considered adults. They can watch that anytime they want. And he said, that really upsets me. I don't want my kids to think anything bad about me when it's not true. So that was, a big fear of his. I asked him about the documentary he did with Martin Bashir. And he said that he had recorded everything. He had his own recording the entire time that Martin Bashir was doing the documentary. And he said you can clearly see where he distorted what Michael said, where he turned it around. And he said, look, when I said having a child sleep in my bed, I didn't mean having a child sleep in my bed while I sleep next to them. He said, I was saying I slept on the floor and they would sleep in my bed. And I said, Michael, come on. And he said, no, I get it. He said, I see it now. He said, but in so many ways I was naive. He talked about how naive he was, that he was pretty smart when it came to the business aspect of things because he'd been dealing with it for a long time. But he said I was really naive when it came to certain things. And he said I was definitely naive when it came to that. He said I didn't think there was anything wrong with it because in my heart, I was like a little kid. I didn't have a childhood. So when I became an adult and had the money, I tried to create a childhood. And he said, I see it now. I get it. He kept saying, I get it. I understand. I get it, So I went on to say one of your longtime housekeepers did an interview and brought up that she had seen you molesting children. And he said, no, I'm sorry. She had seen inappropriate things happening with children. And he said, absolutely not. I don't need to mention names, but I was in the jacuzzi tub with this child, and we were splashing, acting like kids. He said I was being like immature. He said we went to get out. I stood up. I wrapped a towel around me. He said we both had our underwear on in the bath, And he said I put a towel around me, and he put a towel around him. And he said, and then I slipped off my underwear, and he slipped his underwear off, and we just threw them there and went. And he said I went my own direction, went to my closet and got dressed. And he went the other direction and got dressed. He said, at no time did any child ever see my private parts or anything. He said, did I wear my underwear in the bathtub? Yeah. He said, yeah, I did. It was more, he said it was more for fun. We were splashing around. We had those little water guns. Yeah. And he said, had she taken the time to ask me, he said, I would have gladly explained to her what it was all about. And he said, I never understood. He said he never understood why she came out with that information. He said, because, he said, I tried to be good to her. He said, I ultimately ended up firing her. And he said, but I tried to be good to her. He said, she went out running her mouth and saying things that weren't true. And he said, I can't deal with people like that. I asked him, did you ever give a child alcohol? Okay, so he said yes. And I was like, whoa, what? What? So he went on to say he wasn't going to mention any names, but this 15-year-old, he said he basically grew up pretty quickly because of what he did for a living. And he said this 15-year-old had taken many drugs and drank many times. He said this 15-year-old was at his house. He was about to drink wine, and he was drinking wine with this 15-year-old and his mother. The mother was drinking wine, and she said, oh, you can give him wine. It's okay. He drinks wine occasionally. So he gave him wine. And he said, that's the truth. That's the truth. Okay, he went on to say that, looking back over my life, I guess it did look pretty bad that I chose to spend my time with kids as opposed to adults. He said, I understand why people would think that I was weird. He said, but every time I turned around, the media was coming up with new nicknames, bad nicknames, and saying nasty stuff to me. And he said, I just wanted to be happy. I just wanted to do what I like doing and be happy. And he said, yeah, looking back, yeah, I made some mistakes. I did. He went on to say, he wishes that he could go back and change a few things. But he said, I can't. I can't. And he said, the media is going to continue to talk about me even to this day. He said, the media, constantly tries to say whatever they can say about my kids and my family. Yeah. He went on to say that it hurts his heart to know, that people are trying their best to say mean things about him to hurt his kids. He said, that just tugs at his heart. But he said, my kids know what kind of person I was. They know that I was a good dad. They know that I love them, He went on to say, he was so proud of his kids. They're compassionate and loving young adults. He said he was going to be forever grateful, for the time that he was able to spend with his kids. And he's grateful that he's able to watch over them, and he's able to see his nieces and nephews and his siblings, his brothers and sisters, He and I talked about a few little personal things, and then he was gone. So, and I'm going to say this again. I'm going to say this again. Look, not everybody's going to think this is real. People are going to say, oh, no, he molested kids. He did this, he did that. You know, it happens no matter what video I do, no matter who I connect with. You know, people go in the comment section and say, oh, no, this is how it happened. You know, and you're entitled to your opinion, you know, but I'm just putting this out there again. If you say negative stuff about me in my comment section, or if you're just a nasty person and you have too much time on your hands and you have to run your mouth, I'm gonna delete it and I'm gonna block you. Period. That's end of story. You know, I don't need the negative comments. You know, I don't care if you believe me or not. You know, I have people that know that I'm legit. I've done enough readings for people. I've helped enough people with missing persons cases and stuff that people know I'm legit. You know, so I don't need you to sit there and tell me that, oh, I'm a liar and I'm a freak and I'm fat and I'm this and I'm that. So, whatever. Okay, guys, you know, just let the haters, you know, shake it off. Crack myself up. All right, guys. So I know this pandemic is scary. It's still going on. Our governor was supposed to start a phase 1 opening Friday, but now it may not happen because our numbers are still on the rise. And, you know, it's just getting old. But we're going to hang in there. We need to do this together. If you're feeling suicidal, you need somebody to talk to, call the 800 number. Don't do it. It's not worth it. You know? So, all right. Be nice to people. Be safe. Wear your masks in public. Wash your hands. Wear your gloves if that's what you want to do. Use your hand sanitizer. And you know what? Just be nice to each other. You know, just be nice. We have enough bad things in this world, you know? All right, guys. That does it for me. Bye.